Okay. Okay, so we are in the middle, smack in the middle of page Samach Dalet. The line begins with what shemimadrega tachteina. So we went into it briefly, but did not really go through this. So the principle that we're discussing I just want to tell you it's very, very far in your The principle we're discussing is that sechel, for example, sechel, chokhmah and bina, in comparison to midos, chesed, gvura, tiferes, and malchus, midos have much more substance than sechel. Sechel is like what's called the ha'ora. This ha'ora carries with it an infinitely deeper element, and it reaches into a much deeper truth than the midas do. This is the principle that we are learning. And this has been discussed in various circumstances, many different mishalim for this. The last thing that we discussed was the union that Rab and father. There's a Rab who learned torah, and the father who gave birth to him. So the father, so the covenant Harab precedes the covenant of the Ab, of the father. Supersedes the covenant of the father. Why is that? The father gave him his real mitzvahs, and the Rab only taught him chokhmah. So the explanation is that the Gemara says that the father brought him into this world, and the Rab brings him into the Olam Haba, into the next world. And we explained that the principle over here, Olam Haba, is that the Rab gave him connection, gave him a sense of eternity. This world is a finite world. The father brought him into a finite world, a finite sense of being. And the Rab connected him to Olam Haba. And therefore the Rab connected him to a deeper element in the Likus than even the father. Okay, so I said we're in the middle of page Samach Dalet, on the line that begins with the word shemimadrega tachteina. Shemimadrega tachteina, which is in the law. V'chein hu b'torah, which is the same thing is in Torah. She'omer Hazal, but the Chazal say Yof esichosun shalav de boteyoves miterosun shabon. This is, we started this morning, this is the Gemara's comment on what happened by Eliezer Eved Avram. Eliezer Eved Avram went to fetch Rivka, and he had a very involved story. That story of Eliezer getting Rivka is repeated in the Torah twice with great detail. We know that the Torah doesn't have an extra letter. Certain halachas, very complicated halachas, we learn out from a word, not even from a letter, from one letter. And here, the Torah relates a whole story twice. The Gemara says on this, comments on this, that the sichosom, the plain talk of Abdi Aboti Ovis, of the servants of the house of their fathers, is yofe, is preferable, is superior to Teros Shabon than the Torah of the children. So how is this possible? So the question of is like this: V'harei bonim. But we have to understand that when he says bonim means the Jewish people, and this is bonim does not mean only bonim, children of Avram, Yitzchak, Yankov, but bonim means the Meibushin children. Bonim atam lavai lekeichem. This means the principle of bonim, of Eden being Hashem's children, and being Hashem's children, shezehu bechinas shefa atzmis. Children represent the union of Shefa Atzmis. What does Shefa Atzmis mean? Like we discussed the whole time. This represents this is not just an idea coming from Elokus, but this is the actual essence of Elokus. That's what comes to a child, the essence of the father. So therefore, Bonim Yidden have the essence of Elokus, of Hashem. The Gam, and then also HaTorah, He Bechinat Ashpo Atzmos. This is both. The Bonim, the children, the Yidden, are from Atzmos. And the Torah is also Hashpo Atzmos. Torah is Hashpo Atzmos from Hashem. And and yet still, Yofes Yichosom. Yet still we say that the talk of the Abdi Butimovis is superior, is more pleasant than the Torah of Boni. The Sicha, where talk, plain talk, who ha'ora levad, is only a ha'ora. In other words, this is not the etzem, not an essence, but only a reflection of the ukmoi sichas chulin, as in the case of Sichas Chulin. Sichas Chulin means plain talk. Plain talk of Talmidei Chachamim. Doesn't compare to their Torah. Plain talk is plain talk. It's called the Ha'orah. V'agam the Sichas Chulin של Talmidei Chachamim tzrichin limud. Although the Gemara says that Sichas Chulin של Talmidei Chachamim, that the plain talk of Talmidei Chachamim, tzrichin limud, that also needs to be learned. In other words, it is not it's not without depth. It has depth also. It may also need to be learned properly. Yet still, it cannot be superior than hashpoah of sechel. So So here we say that this is Sichos Shal Avdei Motivos, this is Sichos Chulin, even though Sichos Chulin with Talmid Chacham also contains Chochmah, but it doesn't compare to the Ashpos HaSechel Yorah, actual Ashpos Sechel. And yet we say that the Sichel of Avdei Motivos is superior to the torah Shal Bonim. Torah is Ashpos Atzmos. Elo, except, and the explanation is Shezehu Liyoisom Avdei Motivos, that the reason that this is so, that the Sichel of Avdei Motivos is superior to the torah of Bonim is because they are Avdei Motivos, because of the Motivos, the house of the fathers. One is in from fathers. The father says the Lekeinu ve'Lekei Aviseinu, that the union of Obeis is Hareze Bechinas Chochmo Bina. Obeis refers to Chochmo Bina. So therefore, this is referring to Chochmo Bina, like we said above. V'gam be'ever hanohor, and also there's a portion that says be'ever hanohor. Be'ever hanohor Yoshua v'seichen. What is ever hanohor? Shehei mides de'avo. Ever hanohor, it refers to the mides of avon, mides in Chochmo Bina. Ve'alkein, and therefore, gam ha'ora mizeh, even a ha'ora of this, of Avot. Godel mi bechinas hamahus shemimadrega tachtein. Even a ha'ora of this, of Chochmah Bina, is superior to the mahus of the madrega tachtein, of the mahus of the actual present of madrega tachtein. I'm sorry, this is way in the middle. Okay. Now we're going to go into something that you'll be able to follow. Okay, so just to summarize what we just read, we didn't go into this very deeply. The Rebbe is pointing out the similar thing. It says over there by Yovel Sichoso, Terosim Shel Bonim. Terosim Shel Bonim, this is Etzem Hashpor of Sechel. Sichosom, this is a ha'ora, but what is the ha'ora for? It's a ha'ora of Avdei Motivos. Obviously, this is the Chochmah Bina as it is L'mayim. Even though this is only Sichosom, the Ha'ora, that Ha'ora is superior to the Mitzias of the Sechel itself. Similar to what we discussed in all the other examples. This is similar to another very, very odd statement in the Gemara. Gemara says, Chocham odif minov. A Chocham, one who learned Torah, odif is more fundamental, more important than Novi. Chocham odif minov. Chocham is greater than Novi. Chocham can know what a Novi cannot know. What is in from the Quran?
This adif here is preferable or more essential? What's the...
Adif means more important. the Chacham can give insights that nobody cannot. And directives, and the Chacham can reach in to that which a nobody cannot. So we'll discuss it now, that he's going to discuss it. So what is that Chacham Odifin? Chacham is just one who learned Torah with his sechel. Chacham will be. Novi is something that he received directly Nevuah from Hashem. The Nevuah, where Nevuah hu Gilui HaMahus Mamash. Nevuah represents a Gilui HaMahus Mamash, a complete revelation of the Mahus. What does that mean? Okay, we'll talk about Nevuah for a moment. The Rebbe explains the whole Ayin. As we said, we spoke until now that Chochmah, sechel, is a fore, which means it's actually a projection. At the sechel, you figure out such and such. This is what happened, and this is what's going to happen, and so forth. A Novi is Gilui HaMahus Mamash. Gilui HaMahus Mamash means that he knows not by any kind of deduction, any kind of sворos, any kind of reasoning. He knows the reality itself. And it says in Tanakh that Shaul HaMelech went to ask a Novi, his father's donkeys were lost, so he went to ask a Novi, where are my donkeys? And he told him, go over there, you'll find the donkeys. This is not an infant sechel. Just, he knows the mahus, he knows where the donkeys are, and he told him where they are. This is not, Chocham does not have anywhere near that type of access. He knows from the place where he's standing, and he can project up his sechel, by sechel inside, he can project what the thing is on a higher level and so forth, but not that he is there directly. Whereas a Novi, he has a Gilui HaMahus Mamash, a complete revelation of the reality itself. Mahus means the reality itself, the fact of it. Not he knows about it, but he knows it. And as it says in the Pasuk, speaking about Nevuah, Vayero Elov Havaya. Vayero Elov Havaya. Havaya, Hashem appeared to him, showed himself to him. So this was not a projection of Elokus. He saw Elokus. Uksi, and it says similarly in another Pasuk, Bo'era es Hashem. Bo'era es Hashem. I saw Hashem. At the beginning of this pasuk, Bo'era es Hashem, he describes, I saw Hashem sitting, and the Malachim standing around him. And this is whatever that means, but it is Riyaz HaMahus, it is not a projection of any kind. The Chochmah, whereas Chochmah, Arei Zayidi is Amitzius Leval. Chochmah is only the knowing of Amitzius, knowing of the Mitzius of the facts, but not the Mahus. Chassidus explains in great length. They didn't have a chance to talk about these two terms, Mitzius and Mahus. But essentially, Mitzius means the way the thing appears. Mahus is how the thing is unto itself, with its own truth. So the Chocham only knows Amitzius, the appearance of how it expresses itself. Whereas the Novi knows the essence itself. and yet still, we say that Chacham Odif Min Ovi. That Chacham is more important than the Navi. How is it so? The Chacham only knows the Mitzias and Navi knows the Mehus. All right, we'll have a little bit of Kabbalah here. The Hain, and the reason that we say that Choch is superior to Navi, Odif is more important, and he is relating a more important message than a Navi. The fee because Shekol Nevuah Hi B'Netzech V'Hoid. Nevuah is an insight in the midas of Netzach and Hoid. Not in the higher midas of Chesed and Gvura, but Netzach and Hoid. I'm not going to go very detailed in this union, just one of, in general, in Midas himself, we know that there are 7 Midas. There are 2 sets of 3, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. Then there is Netzach V'Hoid, Netzach Eid and Yisod, and then on the bottom there is Malchus. These 2 sets of 3 are divided on a principal level. Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes represent the actual Midah. Netzach Hoid Yisod represent the execution, the functional aspect of the Netzach. Netzach means victory, which means like this. Let me feel this out. If he wants to do a chesed, and there are some kind of obstacles, if something comes in and says, no, don't do this chesed, Netzach overcomes that obstacle and brings it out. The same thing in the other thing, and Netzach Eid and Yisod. So Nevuah is from the lower 3 midas of Netzach Eid and Yisod. Netzach and Hoid. And Moshe Rabbeinu Hoyso Nevuah his Nevuah was Mibechinas Netzach V'Hoid Atzilus. Netzach V'Hoid of Atzilus, the highest level of Netzach V'Hoid, but nevertheless it's Netzach V'Hoid Yislab Shebozeh Gam Mibechinas HaChochma. We're in this midas of Netzach V'Hoid is Mislabish also from Chochma, but essentially this is Chochma as it comes through Netzach V'Hoid. Yishaya Bibriya, and Yishaya his Nevuah was from Netzach V'Hoid in Briya. Yecheskel and his name, and Yecheskel his Nevuah was from Yitzira, was Charia Ba'asiyah, and the Navi is Charia his Nevuah was in level Asiyah. V'kulam, and all of them Hoyso Nevuah Mibchinas Mahuz Ha'atzilus Shebibiyah. Their Nevuah was from the Atzilus that's in Biyah. They call Nevuah because all Nevuah in general is Me'atzilus. Rakshi yes Bazeh Chiluk. All Nevuah initially stems from Atzilus. Except there is a difference in Me'atzilus Atzmi, whether it's from Atzilus itself directly, or Me'atzilus Shebiyah, or Atzilus the way it is manifest in Biyah. Avol Bad HaKoil Hu B'Netzach V'Hi Lebad. But nevertheless, even if it is Atzilus, it is only B'Netzach V'Hoid of Atzilus. V'Chochma, but in Chochma HaSogo Hi B'Madrego Eliyeno Harba. But in Chochma, Chocham His hasoga is in a much higher madrega. It's madrega of chokhmah itself. Harbe yeser. Kmei horashbi al vasholim v'ho arizal. As in the case of the Ashbi and the Arizal, shedibru b'inyonim gevehem yoy. This is in Tanya. Shedibru b'inyonim gevehem. They were able. They spoke in the chokhmah. B'inyonim gevehem yoy, extremely high in yonim. The madregas of Atzilus. The madregas of Atzilus. U'l'maylo harbe me'ilam Atzilus. The Arizal spoke even higher than Atzilus. Except that it was only Diyas HaMetzius, not the Mahuz, not the essence itself, but knowing about it. The Hainu, and the point in this is, Shum the Hasogas HaMahuz Mamos, because that Hasogas HaMahuz, the comprehension of the Mahuz, Efshel Liyas Madregas Elyenis. It's not possible to be in the higher madrigas. As the Pasuk says, by Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu wanted, asked, show me your glory. And Hashem said, you will only be able to see from the back, but not pona, not from the point. because to see the ponim is impossible. But then this is in Gilei Hamhuz. But Asogas HaMitzius, in comprehension of the Mitzius, Asogas HaMitzius is possible even in the highest madrigas. And this is the difference between Chacham and a Navi. The Navi has limits, the madrigas that he can perceive, only in the midas, whereas the Chacham goes into higher madrigas in Chacham. Well, although by the Chacham it is only Diyas HaMetzius, it's only the Chitzenius, the Metzius, the appearance, the Kol Mokoim Chacham Odi. Nevertheless, the Chacham is superior, is more significant than the Navi. The who, and that is Lefi Shehaor Madrega Elyeino, because the Haor, the Chitzonius, only the reflection of a high Madrega, Odiv is more significant. Memahus the Madrega Tachtei. Than the mahus of the law madrega. This principle, this is the conclusion of all the various illustrations of the Ayin, that the haore madrega yino odim muza madrega tein. The principle of this we already discussed quite extensively. That madrega ho'al yino represents not just a higher insight, but a higher element in the Lukus, the more fundamental truth of the Lukus. That's Madriga Ayin. And this is why it is open. Mashakoshu begins Akedah, Sivan, Yutes, in this, again, like this in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains this, and I think some of the words here were direct quotes from there. Okay. Okay, so this whole page was dedicated to explaining this principle, that a ha'ora of a higher madrega has a certain supremacy than the madrega tachtei. And odif means it is more significant. B'chayre would say more significant. You have the actual thing, whereas you have only a projection, only an external view. But as we pointed out, that in this case, the external view is giving out the real source of it that we discussed at great length in this whole discussion. Moikein Yuvon.
Sorry, what is the last point? It's giving out a certain...
Is bringing out the more fundamental truth.
Although it's just reflection, it gets
Only reflection.
Do you have any example?
Huh?
You give an example?
Oh.
Yes. In the past 5 days.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes.
So even though when you have the mahus, you have the real thing itself, there is a deeper level to this real thing that you don't have if that's all you have is the mahus.
We discussed in principle it's like this.
Pardon me?
I said in principle it is like this, the following. We discussed it, quite extensively. I just want to say the principle of it. What does it mean, a higher madrega and a lower madrega? And how can a ha'ora be superior to a mahus? So, this morning we had the most simple illustration of the presentation. We said that, like I mentioned before, the Rav is more significant to the person than his father. How can it be? The father gave him his own materials. The Rav only taught him Chacham. The Gemara says, in the simple terms, because the Rav brought him into Olam Hazeh, into this world, and the father brought him into Olam Hazeh, and the father and the Chacham, the Rav gave him Olam Haba. So why is it so significant? That's number one. And then we point out Olam Haba is Olam Haba, that's a future time. How is that reflected over here in this world that therefore he should respect his Rav more than his father? Right now the Rav only gave him some information, didn't give him anything real. The father gave him a real life, an opportunity to do mitzvahs, opportunity to learn Chacham. That's what the father gave him. So what did we explain? What's the pshat? So we pointed out, this is the principle that we're learning. It is true that the father born in Olam Hazeh, and as father, and because he's in Olam Hazeh, he has the opportunity to learn torah, opportunity to do mitzvahs, and it's a wonderful thing, and he gave him a great thing. Now, let us project the following. The person has Olam Hazeh, and he has all the things that Olam Hazeh can offer, in great abundance. But his thought of Olam Hazeh, his idea of Olam Hazeh is that Olam Hazeh is a finite entity, and it lasts 120 years. After that, there's nothing left. Does it have any significance?
What's the last few words because of this all of a sudden dozing off? I felt like,
Okay.
see if you could repeat the last sentence.
A person has all the greatness, goodness, goodies that Olam Hazeh can offer. Everything. Ruchnis and Gashmis. But his perception of Olam Hazeh is that it lasts 120 years, and after that there's nothing left. Okay, he has wonderful experience, but he has got nothing new. Right? Olam Haba, just the knowledge. Olam Haba is in the future. We're not going to Haba. We are staying here. But while we are here, the knowledge of Olam Haba changes our whole perception of life. Even though we don't experience it. We don't have any experience of it. But that gives value to our lives in a totally different way. It gives a real value that we can't experience, but beyond experience. It's more significant than all the experience. That's the pshat, a ha'ora, of a madrega Ayin of a high madrega. Here, they gave him oil haba means he gave him the sense of eternity. Sense of eternity, even though he lives in a finite world. But that changes his, that elevates, that permeates his whole mitzvahs. More important than anything else that he is. So this is the principle, Baruch. The principle is, okay, what's the difference? Let's think about this. You have Olam Hazeh, and you have wonderful things. You have torah mitzvahs. You can do good things. Then you have the concept of Olam Haba. And Olam Haba speaks of eternity. Now, torah mitzvahs is also a command from the Beis. The Beis said, put on tefillin, keep Shabbos, don't put on tzitzis. But the principle, okay, let me step back now. These commands, like put on tefillin, are all behislapshus in the world. You put on tefillin in a physical environment, a physical arena. Everything you do is contained in the world. When you talk about eternity, that supersedes the whole mitzvah of world. Eternity is exclusively God. There's nothing in the world that has any connection to eternity. So even though you only gave him a sechel aspect of it, not the actual experience, that sechel is superior to all other experiences. This is just to elaborate on this principle of the learning. So this is the pshat that the ha'ora of a higher madrega is odi, is much more important than the mahus of a lower madrega.
So it would follow from what you just said about Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba that a mahus without a higher ha'ara, like you're saying, this world, what is it worth if it's finite and it doesn't have the infinite like Olam Haba? So a mahus without a higher ha'ara also is nothing worth. Is that true?
Well, see, the mahus, let's say a person, let's talk on a very simple human level. You do a favor to a person. A favor is a real deed. It's completely self-contained. You have done a good deed. And in terms of it being a good deed, whether you know whether there's going to be reward for it or not, it's a good deed. It has a godly presence. Goodness is all rooted in godliness. The ability to do a favor without reciprocation, without looking for any kind of recognition, and doing it altruistically is a godly phenomenon. So it's a real thing. But it's a real thing, here's the point. It's a real thing within a worldly context. The world provides for the context of this deed. Like we said the other day, I don't want to confuse it, that also loy signal, right? You shouldn't steal. Stealing is something which is possible only in our world. In the higher world, the whole thing is not possible. So it's a worldly context. It's a real mitzvah, it's a real obligation, but it's still a conversation that is contained within the worldly context. When you talk about let's say, the eternity, this is going out of the worldly context. Olam Haba is going out of the worldly context. Olam Haba is described in the Gemara, and the Rambam speaks about Olam Haba is there is no achila, there's no eating, no drinking. There is no any kind of self-pleasing activities. None of the experiences that are significant by us in this world, in the worldly context, are present in it. What is Olam Haba? Tzadikim yeshvim v'nehnim zivashim. They delight in receiving the shine of the street. This is an intangible thing. They recognize the truth, the truth of godliness. That's essentially what it is. They don't have anything for themselves, like in the Olam Haba. That recognition is superior to all the experiences that one has in the Olam Haba. Even though this is a mahus and this is a ha'or. All right, Baruch?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
All right, we're all working on it. Okay, so this is, all of this whole page and a half, came to explain this following question. Okay, on the bottom of page Samach Dalet, the very bottom. The similar inyan, this principle.
What is the line again?
The last line.
The last line, the very bottom.
Oh.
The last words. The similar inyan will be understood with regards the principle of Nishiki. What is Nishiki? Because we mentioned, it says in Shir Hashirim, Eden are asking, Knesset Israel is begging, longing, Yishokein in Nishiki spirit. That they should get Nishika from Shechina. Nishiki in Nishiki. Even though they have torah, they have mitzvahs, they have everything. Yishokein in Nishiki, want Nishiki. Paltiel explained that Malachim, they were created from Nishiki. Neshamas are created from Zivug Zun, a real creation. And yet, even though they were real creation, they still are vying and they're longing for Nishiki. So we asked, why do they want Nishiki? They have something greater than Nishiki. Nishiki is only a ha'ora. Nishiki is only an expression of something. And the Neshamas are the real thing, much more than Malachim. So this was our question. So now we can understand, being on Nishiki, why the Neshamas were actually begging for Nishiki. And although that Nishiki is only a ha'ora means that here we can understand clearly what the ha'ora is. It's only a reflection of the real thing. It's not the real thing. It's an expression of it. And yet still, in this expression of ha'ora, there is a Yisrael. There is a supremacy that you don't have in Mahus, in Asogas HaMahus. And as we explained, the Yisrael, when you have the Mahus, when you have the Mitzi, this is very contained within the context of the world. This Nishiki is not within the context of the world. This is completely within from the source itself, from God Himself. There's no worldly context to it. There's no worldly presence to it. The presence over there is only the expression that comes milmaila from Hashem Himself. So that's why this nishikin is superior to the mahus. The alkein shayach habakosha. This is why, therefore, shayach habakosha. It makes sense. It's applicable that the Yigna in Knesset soil are begging the Gile Hanshika. That there should be Gile Hanshiki, which is, even though in the Neshomas have something which is more fundamental, more real than Nishikin. But the Gile Nishikin alludes and relates to something superior. This is what we said, similar to what we said just before, that there is Olam Hazeh. In Olam Hazeh you have all kinds of, you have torah mitzvahs, and all kinds of duties, gashmis and ruchnis. But just to know, which is only a ha'or, to know that there is Olam Hazeh, to know that there is eternity, that gives us a certain significance that supersedes all the other experiences. Even though the other experiences are the real thing, and this is only the knowledge of it. That's a ha'ora. This ha'ora supersedes than all other experiences.
Is it also true that this ha'ora, the higher level, that's all we could really have? It's impossible to have the mahus of the higher level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But this will still come into another phase of it. And that's why the bakosha, this was our question, why the Shomas Yisrael are begging when the Shekin Meshik is few when they have the mahus itself. He says, no, that has a superiority.
When you have them, it was awesome.
So far, we didn't bring that up. Just this, the Ayin itself has superiority. Now it comes to this other point. But particularly in the Shomes, when it comes to the Shomes, Sheheim b'mchina zibul gufni. So the Shomes which come from zibul gufni, not zibul gruchni, which means that there is also mahus, sheyesh gilu b'chinas nishikin gamkein, when there is also the nifun nishikin on top of the zibul gufni. There is also the zibul gruchni, the nishikin. And then hareze his chabrus with Beis shemimadregas. That brings about the his chabrus, the joining of both madregas, nishikin v'gufni. Shalidei Zeh, this we'll have to discuss tomorrow. Shalidei Zeh, where as a result of this chabros, of this joining of the two madregas together, nishikin v'gufni, nase yisrei mailo gam behagufni. This elevates the gufni itself also. Even though the Shomes are essentially from the Hebrew Gufni, but when there is the info Nishikin, in itself Nishikin has a supremacy, particularly when the Nishikin come to the Shomes, when the Shomes have the info Gufni, so then the Gufni itself is elevated. All right, this will be it for tonight. Sorry?
Oh, it's okay.
I did my best.
Maybe after
very
bringing
much.
a Shabbos sponsored by
Yeah,
David
sure.
Porter at his house.
So,
At,